welcome to, actually, this is just the beginning. And I hope you've all been enjoying that little cartoon that's been part of our promotional materials. The end is near. Actually, this is just the beginning. And we're really grateful to Richard Rohr for helping us position this whole series of radical rearrangement. He uses that language to talk about apocalyptic experiences when the worlds that we know are coming to an end and new worlds are coming forth. And part of the invitation that he gives us is that the way we get to what is new is by paying attention to what is. So we need to be open and permeable and attentive to what is. And as we do that, we're able then to move to what if, which is about the new worlds. So what we've been doing during this series, actually, this is just the beginning, is we've been using the 4 pathways of Matthew Fox's creation spirituality as our pathways from what is to what if. So we began Via Positiva, which is the pathway of awe and wonder and delight and our pleasure and presence to the natural world and to all that's good about our experience here on the planet, in community, in our faith experience, in our culture, and in the experience of the earth itself. So we began with the Via Positiva, and then last week we went into the Via Negativa, and we explored one piece of that, many pieces to that, but we explored one piece, which was around the experience of not knowing, the experience of being empty and open and not knowing, and the vulnerability and the surrender of that kind of empty, waiting openness. And we explored that aspect of the Via Negativa last week. Alongside this exploration of pathways, we've also been, with the support and leadership of Tony Snow, doing a deeper dive into the 4 elements. So we began first with earth, and then water. We began with fire, and then earth, and then water. And today we're going to be doing air. So the other piece that we'll be paying attention to today is the Via Creativa, which is what happens when you are able to be open to what brings life and joy and goodness and surprise, those things we perhaps more easily move towards, as well as suffering, emptiness, not knowing. When those two come together, there can be an experience of creativity. So we'll be speaking into that today. So to set the stage for our time, I want to say that I'm glad that you're here, that you've gathered your curiosity, your courage, and your desire for connection, your brokenheartedness for and with the world and the earth. You've gathered all these pieces and decided to come together with others during this season of radical rearrangement. So I would invite us to just take a moment to see the other people in this Zoom room. So perhaps you can look at who's here, smile or wave if you're comfortable to do that. As those of you know who've come out to play with me before, this is a highly participative gathering and is made powerful by each of us showing up fully present, resisting multitasking, sharing our faces if we're comfortable, sharing our eyes and smiles and attention. Each of us fully present is the most important ingredient in creating the energy and liveliness of the space. And I believe very strongly that when 2 or 3 are gathered with the intent of being open to God, to what is more than us, that God is present in the connection and the energy and the love and creativity that flows between us. I really believe that very profoundly. So this is a table of connectedness. of joy, grief, compassion, and surprising newness. This table is supported by the United Church of Canada nationally and locally by the Chinook Winds region of the United Church. Ralph Connor Memorial United Church is a core partner. Greg Woolley, minister at Ralph Connor, Tony Snow, Indigenous lead for Chinook Winds region, and Beth Lorimer with Kairos are members of the advisory committee for Green Exodus. Many of us come to this table from the land of prairies, foothills, and mountains, but people also come from other places. So in Calgary and Canmore, we're from the land of prairies, foothills, mountains, Chinooks, and the Bow River, the land where Treaty 7 was made with the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, Métis Nation, Region 3, and all the people who make their homes in Treaty 7, region of Southern Alberta. So as I mentioned in the introduction, today we're looking at the element air and at the Via Creativa, which is the path of creativity and imagination. Generativity, co-creation with the divine, imaginative output, birthing our projects, writing them into existence. I love the commandment that my colleague put alongside this. She says, do not be reluctant to give birth. So I'm going to give you the heads up that as part of walking the talk this evening, there will be the opportunity for each of us to write what's called a mystic poem. And some of you will have done this before, and for some of you, this will be new, but don't worry. We'll be writing poetry in a way that kind of takes the angst out of it, at least in my experience, the angst of not a poet, that angst takes that angst out of it. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. I think I shared last time as we were getting together that I had experienced a bit of a flip as I was preparing for our evening. Rather than feeling that I was making something where there was nothing, I had the sense more that the table that we are gathering around is always here. The opportunity to feel grounded in and connected to what is more than us, to feel connected to the flow of life and love is always here, is always happening. But we are not always present to it. We have to come, we have to show up. The activities that Tony, Greg, and I do are more about picking the tablecloth and the flowers, pulling out the chairs, to what is already goodness in our experience. So I invite you to step up, to show, and to sit down at the table. As I mentioned earlier, Tony has been enabling us to take a deeper dive into the 4 elements. And so I'd like to invite him to lead us now in a deeper understanding and living into the element air. So thanks, Tony.
Thank you. If you could share the screen or the co-host thing.
There you go.
Thank you. So today we are talking a bit about the concept of air. In our medicine wheel, we lift up each of the elements and how they play into our way of knowing about our world and how we understand our relationships. And so I'm going to read a prayer from N. Scott Momaday as we do our smudge. The smudge is a gathering of sacred medicinal herbs and plants from the mountain areas. Only certain people can pick them. Only certain people are to bring them together, and then another person prepares the smudge that we use in our ceremonies. And so it is something of a community effort in order to do that. Let us pray. As then Scott Mombade says, may my heart hold the earth all the days of my life. When I am gone to the farther camps, may my name sound on the green hills, and may the cedar smoke that I have breathed drift on the mountain walls. And among the branches of living trees, may birds of many colors encircle the soil where my steps have been placed. And may the deer, the lion, and the bear of the mountains be touched by the blessings that have touched me. May I chant the praise of the wild land. May my spirit range in the wind forever. And that's from N. Scott Mombade and his book, Earthkeeper. And so as we form this, part of our understanding is our relationship to a lived experience of the Matthew Fox model. And so I've switched around where necessary, how we understand our relationship to creation and how this tells us a story about who we are. So we went through the beginning of light, the beginning of awareness and acknowledgement, the beginning of intelligence and learning, and then to the fruition of that through the earth, as the earth rages in bounty, through the green lushness that we enter into during summer. And then that water season, that season of the close of the day, the close of night, and the beginning of those water spirits that come to us in the form of storms and other ways that we understand our place within the world. As we look to the north, we think about that white color and the wisdom of elders with white hair. We think about the season of winter and the connections that are there. Usually this is connected to the buffalo spirit, which is a very powerful spirit, and to the sweetgrass. And so when we think about air, we think about it in terms of how we are spirit and how we are connected to other spirits through our work and how we understand the world. And there's a maturity to that level of understanding that we appreciate from our elders. It's going to play a song here after this. So we have an acknowledgement of air. The earth is our mother. Their story cycles along her body through cliffs and valleys, lifted in the mists of water, carried on Chinooks, dried upon sands of her deserts. We are gifted breath through creation, the work of millennia, purifying, keeping, nurturing. The ancestors knew that they were connected to the spirit of wind, its broad expanse, its quiet necessity. We give thanks to our Creator for the winds of the air as we remember our story is written in the visions of light, earth, water, and wind. In some of the work that I've been doing, there's a song in the Hopi tradition called Breath of Life. I'll read that here. We are grateful, O Mother Earth, for the mountains and the streams, where the deer by command of thy breath of life wander. Wishing for you the fullness of life, we shall go forth prayerfully upon the trails of our mother, of our earth mother. I just want to briefly talk about a teaching of air and an understanding of how we are, how we see our relationship to the world around us.
There is a legend about the wind that I wish you to know. It is said that the wind has a spirit of its own. This is why it can move around Mother Earth. As it moves around the earth, the wind carries within it the words uttered by the lips and hearts of every man, woman, and child. Every laugh, every sad sigh, every joyful sound, every foul word, every song. It is said that the wind carries these words and sounds in its bosom until the last day, when we stand with the wind before the Creator. At that day, the wind will unlock the words of our lips and hearts, and we will hear the messages that we have sent upon it. It is said that at that time, our messages will bring us deep joy or bitter sadness. Soon I will see that day, but already I am a witness of the legend, for I have heard the sounds of man upon the wind, and my heart has been made sometimes happy and sometimes sad for what I have heard. But there is more to the legend, my young friend, and it is this that I wish you most to remember. Our hearts and their messages can change. As we stand before the Creator, we will be saddened or made joyful by the messages still spoken by our hearts.
I'm going to move on to the next one. I cut that into a 2-minute thing and it didn't do it. So we talk about the air as a spirit and the air as a way of understanding the world. So when we think about air, we think about the practice of air.
This air that I'm sitting here and breathing as you and I talk not only comes from you and shares you in that manner, but it also comes from Oklahoma, South Dakota, Alaska, China, the Thunder Nation. And all of those things combined are now part of me, and the same with the water that I drink and the food that I eat. And the intricate connection that we have is very physical, very scientific, and very spiritual.
I encourage people that aren't indigenous to this land, go back home and experience, even if it is just for a week vacation. Go back, see where you come from, Go back to where your people first put their feet and feel that soil, touch that tree, walk in that water, build that appreciation for the land that you come from.
This earth is a living being. We are simply blessed to be part of her.
And so as we think about what we've heard today, that understanding as we close this cycle of the 4 directions, we'll continue on with the other 2 directions in the next coming weeks. But here, to reflect upon each of these elements and their meaning in our lives, what they signal to us about our understanding of the world around us. And so what does your relationship say to air, say about your connection to the earth? And that understanding that in this time with COVID and other things, that the air has become dangerous and has been the vehicle through which the virus and other things have perpetuated. And so our relationship with the air needs to change. And that's what I leave with you here in this circle. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. I think one of the pieces that has been evolving during the year now that we've been meeting together with Green Exodus has been an exploration and a relishing in our breath and in a conscious awareness of breathing, a conscious awareness of what happens when we breathe, and letting the experience of breathing be part of our spiritual experience. And it is ironic, isn't it, that we should be settling into the goodness of all of that at the same time, just as Tony mentioned. We have been forced into a different way of living by COVID, where we've had to be so careful about how our breath is shared. So what I'd like to do is lead us into a bit of a time of a couple of moments of stillness, a couple of moments to settle into your experience of air and of breath as we gather here today. So we'll sit for a couple of minutes and then I'll call us back with the wonderful poem by Denise Levertov. So I'm going to share again a poem that we shared last week, The Cure for It All, a poem by Julie Fehrenbacher. Go gently today. Don't hurry or think about the next thing. Walk with the quiet trees. Can you believe how brave they are? How kind? Model your life after theirs. Blow kisses at yourself in the mirror, especially when you think you've messed up. Forgive yourself for not meeting your unreasonable expectations. You are human, not God. Don't be so arrogant. Praise fresh air, clean water, good dogs. Spin something from joy. Open a window, even if it's cold outside. Sit, close your eyes, breathe. Allow the river of it all to pulse through eyelashes, fingertips, bare toes. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe until you feel your bigness, until the sun rises in your veins. Breathe until you stop needing anything to be different. So I invite you just to take a few minutes to breathe. The Avowal by Denise Levertov. As swimmers dare to lie, face to the sky, and water bears them. As hawks rest upon air, and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all surrounding grace. Would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all surrounding grace. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Denise Levertov. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you that we can gather in that all surrounding grace. So we transition from that space of just being held and being known to thinking about the Via Creativa. And I'm kind of excited to talk about this tonight. I'm looking forward to it very much. So I'd like to begin with a quote from Matthew Fox. Because this tradition, that's the tradition of Via Creativa, pays equal heeds to both the Via Positiva and the Via Negativa, it celebrates the union of the two in the Via Creativa, in letting both pleasure and pain happen, both light and darkness, both naming and unnaming, both cosmos and void. We allow a third thing to be born. And that third thing is the very power of birth itself. It is the image of God, the image of Creator coming alive and expressing its divine depths and divine fruitfulness. It is our creativity, which is the full meaning of humanity's being an image of God. So I think what Matthew Fox is inviting us into there is a real knowing and celebrating of the creativeness of what it means to be human as good, as an expression of God, as an expression of life, and as something that's valuable, and as one of the ways that we are part of a universe that is lively and evolving and changing and flowing. As we are creative, we are part of that flowing, creative, creating, new emerging universe. I think as I've been stepping into this work with Green Exodus, that's been one of the ideas that's been I haven't got it yet, but it's a seed. It's a seed in me. And it's this idea that the universe that we are part of is not static. Even as we speak, it's changing. I remember seeing an article in the Globe and Mail, and it was a scientist of some description. And he was saying that, like in, I don't know how many thousands of years he gave, or I don't know what the time frame was, but he was positing that humans will look very different in that time frame. We kind of think that this expression of humanness is like, now and forever. And he was positing that no, even that is going to change. And I was like, wow, okay, that's kind of pretty mind-blowing. So it's also very exciting, though, to have this sense that we're part of a universe that is evolving, and that also offers the possibility that God is also changing, that everything is moving and becoming more. And as we engage in the creative process and the creative acts of creativity, we are contributing to that evolution, that change, that newness, that expression of life that's morphing and connecting and becoming more, becoming other, becoming more complex. And as we contribute in whatever ways that we contribute, and I know there are artists and authors that are here, we are part of that evolution. So just for the heck of it, I wanted to share what happened to me this winter. So I determined a year ago, after some neighbors and I had a lot of fun making ice sculptures when it was -20, -30 in Calgary, that I was going to plan to do that again this year. So I got all of my preparations in order so that as I was paying attention, to the weather app, when I saw that we were going in for like a 2-week freezing spell, I was ready to make ice sculptures. So I'm going to show you pictures from the photo section on my laptop. They're not organized. I'm just going to share them. And there are a lot, so we won't go through all of them. They're like baby pictures, like I could, look at that one, look at this one, look at that one. So we won't take forever to do it, but I will show you some, because this was my experience of creativity, an experience of creativity. And it was also an experience of embracing and living into, and Barbara and I sometimes use this word, temporal art. So art that celebrates impermanence. Okay, so how do I share my screen here? Okay, so I'm just going to zip through some. This is what happened in front of Prairie Sky, where I live. It was very fun. And then it was fun taking pictures of them. And then what's happening, can I do that? Is a friend and I are playing with them to, as you can see, there's lots of pictures, to turn them into images that we could share. So we're experimenting with positioning them on different backgrounds and highlighting different aspects of them by using Photoshop. So this is part of how we've been playing with them, and partly they're an experience, just of beauty. Yeah. So that was my going with the earth, the beauty of the earth, and playing and being surprised and carrying buckets of balloons of water up in my stairs inside my house, hoping it only popped once, fortunately, colored water everywhere. Anyway, I'll pause there. Any comments as I've shared that amazingness with you?
Beautiful, really beautiful. Can I come next year and learn how to do it?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Can. I actually have been thinking that, I'm sorry, I'm just going to get back to my notes here. Okay. And then I have to find you again. That's always a bit tricky. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so it was very interesting. So that's my experience of creativity. And I'm sure each of you can identify places where you go to play, whether it's making soup or singing or dancing or thinking or writing or making art, or how you plant your garden, the way you notice and name birds, the way you speak to the puppy dogs you see when you go to the off-leash area. So whatever it is, that's your form of creativity and honoring and beauty. So the next piece I wanted to share as we step into this exploration of the Via Creativa is I wanted to share the story and a poem about Franz Marc. So Franz Marc was a German painter and printmaker during the First World War. And I was just blown away by this story, which I read in Brain Pickings. So that apparently during the thickest darkness of World War I, he was involved in painting enormous canvases, and he painted them in pointillistic patterns of color as camouflage, military camouflage. And the woman who was writing about him said it was almost like he was trying to band-aid the brutality with beauty. And so he made these incredibly gorgeous canvases that were part of hiding them from the enemy. So his understanding of his painting was that he was wanting to part the veil of appearances with art in order to look for and paint the inner spiritual side of nature. So that was where he found his probably his psychological survival was during the war, was in painting these massive canvases. And apparently within a month of painting them, he died. A shell explosion sent a metal splinter into his skull, and he was killed instantly. At the same time that a German government official was creating a list of prominent artists that were to be recalled from military service. And his name was on that list, but he had already died. So I've invited Trevor to read a poem about him by Mary Oliver. And while he's reading it, I'm going to bring up the painting that she's referring to. So it's Franz Marc's painting called Blue Horses. So Trevor, if you'd like to go ahead and read that, that would be great.
Franz Marc's Blue Horses by Mary Oliver. I step into the painting of the 4 blue horses. I'm not even surprised that I can do this. One of the horses walks toward me. His blue nose noses me lightly. I put my arm over his blue mane, not holding on, just cummingling. He allows me my pleasure. Franz Marc died a young man, shrapnel in his brain. I would rather die than try to explain to the blue horses what war is. They would either faint in horror or simply find it impossible to believe. I do not know how to thank you, Franz Mark. Maybe our world will grow kinder eventually. Maybe the desire to make something beautiful is the peace of God that is inside each of us. Now all 4 horses have come closer and are bending their faces toward me, as if they have secrets to tell. I don't expect them to speak, and they don't. If being so beautiful isn't enough, what could they possibly say?
Thank you. Yeah. So I think that poem helps us to get a sense of beauty as an expression of God, of the divine, in Mary Oliver's words and in our seeing of the beautiful painting. So what I'm going to invite us into now is an opportunity for you to dabble your toes in moments of creativity. Some of you will be familiar with this form of writing a poem. We used it in the earlier work we did with Green Exodus last winter. It's called a mystic poem. So what you're going to need is a piece of paper and a pen. Okay, so if you can make sure you've got a piece of a paper and a pen. And what I'd like you to do is we're going to put some words in the center of the page. So we'll put some words in the center. And the words we're going to put in the center are what is. So we've been talking in this series about the movement from what is to what if, and that is the path that we need to go on for something new to happen. So I wanted us to begin by using the phrase what is as the central phrase in the middle of our page. So what you'll do is you'll write what is in the middle of the page, and then you'll take your pen and you'll put it around what is. And when you feel ready, you'll kind of circle what is. And when you feel ready, you'll take it off to a corner of the page and you'll write something, anything that comes to mind about what is. It might be something about your day. It might be something about what you've just experienced. It might be something about the Ukraine. It might be something about the climate. It might be something about something beautiful. It might be something sad. Whatever comes to mind as your kind of experience of what is right now. And you can just write a word or a short phrase that captures that. And I would invite you to be as concrete and tangible as you can be, if it's possible, to not try to use too many big abstract words, but if that's what comes, and that's also fine. And so we're going to do that, like say maybe 20 times. So you're doing it pretty fast. You don't have to think about it very much. And then what we're going to do after you finish doing that is you're going to take your pen and you're going to twirl the page around, and you're going to close your eyes and you're going to, like throwing a dart, you're just going to tap your pen in and highlight a phrase that's closest to it. And then you're going to write that phrase down. And then you're going to twirl the page again, close your eyes, and you're going to put the pen down to the page, and you're going to write that phrase down. And you're going to do that about 10 times, okay? And weird things will happen. You may find that you get the same phrase a lot, or you may not. And so then you're going to have this list of phrases. And after you've got about 10, if it feels like that's sufficient, then I'll want you to write them again with the last one first, so like in reverse order. So you end up with 2 poems. One, the phrases that you got in the order that you identified them the first time, and the second time in a reverse order. Did those instructions make sense? Or is there anything I should clarify? So what is in the middle? Circle your pen around and then take it off to a corner of the page, write something that comes to mind, and then turn your page around, go off to another part of the page and write something. Scroll your pen around, go off to another part of the page, write something. And when you've kind of filled up the page, then you started to do the kind of close your eyes and spin it. So the mystic idea is just all the ways that we're kicking our control, letting go of our control of this. So we'll take about 10 minutes to do this. What I'd like to invite you to do is to take a word or a phrase from your poem, and we'll put it in the chat, and then we'll see what we create there together. Okay, well, I'm going to read it the way it came on mine, and maybe somebody else can read it the way it came on theirs. Still the sun comes, the wind, the breath, the spirit. Clowns struggle with depression too. Held, fragile, life goes on. A magpie in a stunted tree. Dark, open sound.